The sky over Rim 4 split into crimson streaks as the Dominion's weapons bloomed across the snowfields. The clouds weren't smoke or flame but something far worse, an aerosol mist that shimmered like crushed rubies suspended in ice. Dr. Amina Qadir tightened her mask against her face and shoved through the panicked line of civilians sprinting toward Habring Beta's inner seals. The alarm klaxons pulsed like war drums, echoing through the steel corridors. A merchant collapsed beside her. His body, tall, jointed, carapace still flecked with ammonia frost, convulsed once and went still. HFY biology couldn't withstand whatever had been loosed into the air. Amina knelt only long enough to check for signs of life, then pulled her sampler from her belt. She had no time for prayers. Survival demanded knowledge. The crimson fog pressed against her visor like a living thing. She extended the wand, held it steady until the device chimed, then glanced at the readout. Peaks spiked across the spectrum she knew too well, vanillide agonists, dense concentrations. Her lips stung as though she'd bitten into raw peppers. "Copy this to command," she said, voice muffled through the mask. "It's not a nerve agent, it's binding to heat receptors." Static crackled back. Then the militia operator's strained voice. "Dr. Qadir, civilians first. Get underground now." "I am underground," she muttered. The mist was already seeping through breech vents. Running deeper meant abandoning the truth, and the truth was what would win or lose this war. Above the alarms, a new voice rang out, deep, ritualistic, amplified across every channel. "People of Rim, you breathe mercy. The Dominion does not wish your extinction, only your silence. Red Ghost spares you the blade. Yield, and your suffering ends." Strategos Vakes. His words rolled like scripture, certain, cold. Amina wiped condensation from her visor and keyed her recorder. "Not universal, Strategos," she whispered. "Not against us." The lab was chaos, benches cluttered with half-sealed vials, condensation dripping from ceiling vents. Amina slammed her sampler into the reader, the display lighting up with chemical profiles. Corporal Diaz, still in battle gear, hovered near the doorway. "Doc, command says lock this place down. Too dangerous to linger." She shot him a glare. "If I don't linger, you're fighting blind." The screen scrolled with results, capsaicinid analogs, structured like fire in molecular form. Harsh, yes. Fatal to HFY, certainly. But for humans? Amina's stomach twisted with the possibility. Diaz edged closer. "So what's it do to us?" "Depends." She pulled up the receptor models. "These bind to TRPV1, the heat sensors in our nerves. To the HFY, it overwhelms and kills. To us, it just hurts." Diaz blinked. "Hurts? I just watched 3 traitors drop dead." "Not humans," she corrected softly. Her grandmother's voice ghosted in her ears. Asterisk heat is not harm. Learn the difference. Asterisk. Diaz exhaled, half a laugh, half disbelief. "You're telling me this whole Dominion superweapon is chili powder? More concentrated. More vicious. But yes. For us, it's heat, not death." She paused, eyes flicking to the bodies of HFY hauled past the corridor window. "For them, though, it's execution." Hours later, the militia briefing room was tense enough to split steel. Officers sat rigid, helmets off, faces etched by fatigue. Amina stood at the head of the table, projecting the molecular scans. "This is Red Ghost," she began. "A vanilla neurotoxin derived from ghost thorn vines. Universally lethal, the Dominion claims. But their definition of universal doesn't include us." Colonel Reyes leaned forward, jaw tight. "Doctor, speak plainly. It activates our pain pathways, Colonel. Throat burns, eyes water, lungs scream. But it does not kill. Humans survive exposure." A wave of disbelief rippled across the table. One officer muttered, "That's suicide talking." Reyes silenced him with a hand. "And your proof, Doctor?" Amina held her ground. "Preliminary models. Comparative biology. And 1 personal exposure in the field." She tapped the datapad, pulling up her own biometric logs: elevated heart rate, blood pressure spikes, cortisol storms. But life intact. Reyes stared at her, unreadable. You're suggesting we let our soldiers wade through this fog? No. I'm suggesting we prove to the Dominion, and to our allies, that their civilized deterrent isn't the god weapon they claim. Show them it burns but doesn't break us, and their myth collapses. The silence stretched. Finally, Reyes shook his head. Not yet. I won't gamble morale on a scientist's pain tolerance. We hold position until we know more. Amina wanted to argue, but the set of his jaw told her the decision was final. For now. That night, exhaustion pressed down on her like the gravity of 3 moons. She sat alone in the lab, the hum of recyclers the only company. The ghost thorn profiles flickered on the display, molecular lattices glowing red like embers. She remembered her grandmother's kitchen back in Karachi, years before the stars had claimed her life. The old woman's hands were steady as she sliced chilies, oil spitting on the pan, filling the air with a fire that made Amina's eyes stream. Heat teaches respect, not fear, her grandmother had said, sliding a spoonful of curry onto her plate. You learn to breathe through it, child, or you never taste the world. Amina rubbed her temples, her lips still tingling from the day's exposure. Heat, not harm. Perhaps humanity's strangest strength. The Dominion's second broadcast arrived before dawn. Vakes's voice echoed across every channel, every speaker, even the lab walls. You delay the inevitable. Red ghost blankets your moon. It cannot be stopped. It does not fail. Accept the mercy of silence. Amina shut her eyes, then opened them with steel in her gaze. She tapped her recorder. Message to command, she said firmly. Strategos Vakes believes his weapon infallible. He's wrong. Tomorrow, I start controlled trials. We need data, not fear. She paused, then added softly. And when we're ready, we'll show them what humans eat for breakfast. Here's Chapter 2, expanded in depth at \1000 words, tight, logical, with dialogue and flow. The med bay smelled of disinfectant and tension. Rows of cots lined the walls, every one of them occupied, burned lungs, swollen eyes, bodies trembling from the crimson mist. Most were HFY, their chitin cracked and leaking a pale fluid. The human soldiers had burns in their throats and eyes, but they were alive, bandaged and cursing. Dr. Amina Kadir stood in the center, tablet in hand, watching the heart monitors flicker in steady rhythm. No flat lines for the humans. Her chest tightened, not relief, not yet, but confirmation. The Dominion's terror weapon was pain, not death. Colonel Reyes loomed beside her. You're asking me to sanction exposure experiments, he said. His voice was low, pitched so the injured wouldn't hear. I'm not asking, she replied. I'm telling you it's the only way to prove what I already see with my own eyes. She gestured at the soldiers. They hurt, but they live. The HFY don't. If we don't show the difference, Vakes wins by fear. Reyes folded his arms. And if you're wrong? Then I'll be the first casualty, she said flatly. The colonel studied her, searching for hesitation. He found none. Fine. But it stays controlled. Med support, full monitoring. No heroics. Amina almost smiled. Science isn't heroics. It's clarity. The next morning, volunteers assembled, 4 soldiers and Amina herself. Diaz was among them, helmet tucked under one arm. You sure about this, Doc? He asked, voice uneven. I grew up on Karachi curries, she said, strapping sensors to her arm. This will hurt, but it won't kill us. The medtechs prepared aerosol chambers, each no larger than a storage locker. Transparent panels gleamed under fluorescent light. The soldiers eyed them like coffins. Reyes entered, arms behind his back. You step in, you breathe, you last 30 seconds. Monitors track everything. If vitals crash, medics drag you out. Understood? Yes, sir, came the chorus. Amina entered first. The panel sealed with a hiss. A red mist filled the space, curling like smoke in water. Her throat caught fire instantly, as if she'd swallowed boiling oil. Eyes streamed, chest heaved, heart raced. Pain clawed every nerve. She focused on the numbers flashing across the screen, heart rate spiking, blood pressure surging, but all within survivable thresholds. She forced herself to breathe, slow and steady, each inhale like glass shards, each exhale like fire. 30 seconds passed. The chamber vented. Amina stumbled out, coughing, sweat plastering her hair to her face. The medtech scanned her vitals, stable. She grinned through streaming eyes. "Told you," she rasped. Diaz muttered. "Remind me never to share a dinner table with you." Then he stepped into the chamber. One by one, the soldiers endured it. All staggered, coughing, some retching, but none collapsed. Every monitor showed the same pain, yes, but no lethal collapse. Reyes finally spoke. "So the Dominion's miracle weapon is a glorified pepper spray?" "Not glorified," Amina corrected, still hoarse. "Weaponized. But not against us." Later that day, she faced another problem. The HFY envoy, their chitin dulled from exposure, sat in a wheelchair outside the lab. His translator device buzzed softly with each word. "You survive," he said. "We do not. Our families choke while you walk away burning but alive." Amina crouched to meet his clouded eyes. "I won't let them die unprotected. I think I can help." She returned to the lab, tearing through chemical stores. Ghost thorn bound to heat receptors. For THRY, the reaction cascaded into lethal spasms. Could she interrupt the binding? Hours of calculations led her to a crude solution, an alkaline gel, spread across breathing membranes, neutralizing the acid environment the toxin needed. It wouldn't stop all damage, but it could buy minutes. She smeared the gel on Diaz's mask and sprayed a mist inside a chamber. He sniffed cautiously, coughed once, then grinned. "Hurts less." She handed a sample to the envoy. "It won't make you immune, but it might keep you alive long enough to escape the fog." The envoy bowed his head. "Your heat shields our children." That night, negotiations opened over secure comms. Amina stood beside Reyes, facing the grainy image of Stratego's Vakes projected above the table. His exoskeletal armor glistened in the steam of his chamber. "You defy inevitability," Vakes said. "Red Ghost spares your flesh but sears your allies. Without them, you are alone." Amina stepped forward. "Then allow us to evacuate them. Call a pause, let us move civilians out, and no one need suffer further." Vakes tilted his head, mandibles clacking softly. "You seek delay. Delay feeds resistance. Resistance breeds slaughter." "It's not delay," she said. "It's dignity. Spare them, and you prove your claim of mercy." The Strategos' voice hardened. "Deterrence must remain unambiguous. If you breathe, you yield. If not, you perish." The link cut. Reyes swore under his breath. "He's not bending." Amina stared at the static, jaw set. "Then we make him." The next battle came at the basalt canyons, jagged cliffs where militia units held narrow passes. The Dominion advanced behind waves of crimson fog, their troops moving like silhouettes in a storm. Human soldiers braced with masks sealed tight. The THRY fell back, clutching at their throats, only to be pulled into cover by medics wielding gel and alkaline wash. Dozens were saved. Bullets cracked, drones screamed, and the canyon walls thundered. Yet through it all, the humans stood, hacking and spitting, eyes red but rifles steady. Diaz crouched beside Amina as she rushed to treat a collapsing THRY child. "Doc," he panted. "They're starting to realize we're not dropping." She looked up. Across the canyon, Corth soldiers hesitated, eyes darting toward their commanders. The weapon that should have ended resistance was only slowing it. Amina pressed the mask tighter to the child's face and whispered, "Then it's time we prove it, not just in the canyon, but to the whole galaxy." That evening, back at the Habring, she stood before Reyes with data sheets spread like cards across the table. "Colonel, the numbers are clear. Humans endure. The THRY have protection. The Dominion's terror is a lie, one broadcast away from collapse." Reyes rubbed his temples. You want a stage? A public stunt. Not a stunt. A demonstration. They built a myth around Red Ghost. We tear it down in front of them. His eyes narrowed. You mean to poison yourself on camera? To eat it, she corrected. Prepared safely, but visibly. If they see me swallow what they call death and stand breathing, their fear dies. Reyes shook his head slowly, torn between admiration and alarm. You're mad, Doctor. Maybe. But madness ends wars faster than silence. The relay tower rose like a frozen spine out of Rim 4's basalt, each rib a truss of hoarfrost steel. On the climb, the wind tasted metallic, a hint of ghost thorn riding the drafts from the valley. Dr. Amina Kadir checked the pelican case strapped to her chest: pipettes, buffered concentrate, med-scan, saline, antacid slurry, and a laminated card with the script she hoped she wouldn't need to read. Corporal Diaz hauled himself up the ladder beside her. Say the word and we fake it, he muttered. Food, dye, and bravado. We won't lie, Amina said. If we lie and they call it, the war doubles in length. Just saying, the honest plan involves you eating the thing that melts throats. Activates them, she corrected. Not melts. At the hatch, a technician in a grease-streaked parka waved them in. The uplink room was a cube of warm light and humming racks. Screens showed a time-synced clock, signal strength, 3 galaxies worth of listeners waiting to be routed. A clear table had been set with medical monitors, 2 cams on tripods, and a silver tray. The tray held a ration biscuit, a porcelain spoon, and a vial the color of a stopped heart. Colonel Reyes stood with a headset crooked around his neck. We've got a 3-minute window before the Dominion cycles their jammers. Once we punch through, you're live to every neutral channel, plus the Dominion civilian bands we can spoof. Amina glanced at the vial. And Vakes? His command net too, Reyes said. If he smashes his console, I want him to have to look up first. Diaz moved to the door as the techs adjusted angles. We'll hold the stairs, he said. If they come for the feed, they'll have to climb over me. Amina pulled on thin med gloves and breathed. Her mouth was already salivating in anticipation of pain. She set the pelican case on the counter, checked the buffer mix again: calcium binding agent, antacid base, minute citric balance to keep the pH where human stomachs wouldn't revolt. Not cheating, just safety. The binding would still hit TRPV1 like a hammer. 30 seconds, the lead tech said. On my mark, you'll get the green. Reyes leaned close. Last chance to walk this back. Colonel, she said, my grandmother fed me tempered heat at 8 years old so I'd learn to breathe through it. Today it gets put to use. He exhaled, a bare smile at the edge of his mouth. Then let's cook. The light over the lens clicked from red to green. Amina lifted her chin. People of the frontier, she said, voice even. Strategos Vakes tells you his red ghost is mercy. I'm here to show you what it is to us. She uncapped the vial. The smell rose instantly, sweet, floral, and wicked. The cameraman flinched. Amina measured a spoonful of the crimson concentrate, then held it up to the lens so the surface tension quivered like a jewel. Ghost thorn is a vanilloid agonist, she said. It binds to heat receptors in human nerves. Painful. Not fatal. She set the spoon down, broke the ration biscuit, and with a practiced motion, no flourish, no daredevil grin, she dipped one piece, coating it until it glowed. Do not do this without medical guidance, she said. This is a demonstration, not advice. Then she ate. The world spiked to white. Heat detonated from her tongue to her ears, a siren of fire drowning thought. Her body screamed to spit, to retch, to flee. She swallowed deliberately, each peristaltic wave a line of molten wire dragging the burn down. Tears burst from her eyes, sweat rushed from her scalp, her hands trembled. She raised one shaking finger and clicked the med scan. Numbers flashed, heart a runaway drum, pressure high, oxygen holding. She forced breath into a rhythm, 3 short, 1 long, like the cadence of old recitations in her grandmother's kitchen. TRPV1. she managed, the consonants turning to cinders in her mouth. It signals heat. We are built to withstand it. We train with it. We dine on it. We survive it. A cutaway screen, Reyes had insisted on it, showed her blood oxygen on a floating overlay, the curve steady, stubbornly boring. Another camera tracked her hands for tremor analysis. Pain, yes. Collapse, no. Amina laid the spoon back on the tray. To our allies who cannot endure it, we have gels and washes. To the Dominion soldiers told this is merciful, this is not mercy. It is a mistake dressed as doctrine. A chime rang on the console. They're jamming, the tech said. Packet loss rising. Hold them, Reyes snapped. Bleed every buffer. The door sensor flashed red. Diaz's voice cut in over the room intercom, calm and sharp. Contact on the stairs. 2, maybe 3. They brought a breaching saw. Amina swallowed, a second aftershock of heat lighting her insides. She saw the spoon, still stained. If one bite punctured a myth, 2 would hammer it flat. She poured another measure, smaller, let it bead, and licked it clean off the metal. Tears poured harder. She smiled anyway, the curve tight and honest. Strategos, she said to the lens. Call your medics. Call your economists. You don't have a deterrent against us. You have a public relations problem. The door boomed. Screams of metal. Diaz shouted something feral, and the corridor filled with the short, angry coughs of close-quarters fire. A round punched the doorframe. Sparks pinwheeled. Reyes didn't flinch. 5 more seconds, he said. You've got the galaxy. Amina leaned closer to the lens, eyes red, face slick, voice steadying. We are not the species you thought we were. The light over the camera flickered, then held. The tech shot a thumbs up, wild-eyed. Signal mirrored to their civilian net, she said. They can't unsee it. Reyes slashed a hand across his throat, the cut signed to end the feed. The green light died. The door shuddered open half a handspan before slamming shut again. Diaz's boot sole appeared in the gap, then a Corth forelimb, black carapace slick with frost. A flashbang went off in the corridor, white light and a howl of pressure. Then silence but for the tower's hum and Amina's pulse in her ears. Diaz stumbled in, smoke curling from the muzzle of his carbine. Ladder's clear, he said, breath fogging. He took one look at Amina's face and whistled. You look like a saint of pain. Feels like it, she croaked. She reached for the antacid slurry and took a measured swallow. The relief was muted, a cool river behind the bonfire. Get her to med, Reyes ordered, but his voice held a current she hadn't heard before, something like hope with sharp edges. Then we wait for the galaxy to talk back. They didn't wait long. The first returns hit the uplink buffer in a flood, civilian feeds from Dominion worlds, wide, unblinking eyes watching a human eat the mercy. Dockworkers in heated bays. Priests in steam-lit sanctums. Cadets in sackcloth training robes. The comments scrolled in composite translation. Asterisk it burns them / it does not stop them / we were told / is this blasphemy? / is this liberation? Asterisk. A second wave came in from traders across the rim, then from neutral nodes in the capital corridors. Stocks tied to ghost thorn containment swung like broken pendulums. Insurance markets howled. The war's economics had been cut at the knees. Reyes read the room as if it were a battle map. Start the parley requests, he told the techs. Offer Needle Spire a channel. No conditions. Diaz sank onto a crate, rubbing a scorch mark off his sleeve. Think the strategos will pick up? He'll have to, Amina said, voice recovering by degrees. If he doesn't, his governors will. His priests will. Someone will decide reality beats a sermon. As if summoned by arrogance, the central console chimed with a private handshake. An emblem like an obsidian spear unfolded on the holoscreen. Command channel, Dominion. The tech breathed. It's him. The steamlit face of Strategos Vakes filled the air above the table, lenses reflecting data storms Amina could only guess at. Behind him, robed aides hovered, faces rigid with the strain of belief meeting evidence. He studied Amina for a long time. His mandibles moved once slowly, a gesture that might have been amusement or grief. "You injure yourself," he said at last. "On purpose. For theater." "I demonstrate," Amina replied. "For truth." Vakes's gaze flicked to the overlay of her vitals frozen in the upper corner of the screen, then back. "You do not die," he said. It wasn't a question. "No," she said. "We don't." The strategos closed his eyes, the lid membranes whispering like paper. "You have made my officers liars," he said quietly. "You have made my rituals small. Or made your mercy real," Amina said. "End the deployments. Evacuate those who cannot endure. Sit with us. We can build a world where Red Ghost is a lab discipline, not a banner." A pause, filled with the hiss of steam and the distant thump of pumps. When Vakes spoke, there was stone in his voice, but not the old certainty. "Come to Needle Spire," he said. "Under truce. Bring your work. Bring your stubbornness." Reyes stepped into frame. "We accept with conditions. Observers from the HFY, open airlocks, no hidden squads." "Agreed," Vakes said, surprising them both. "If I am to be shamed, I will be shamed honestly." The channel cut. Diaz let out a low breath. "That sounded a lot like surrender." Amina shook her head. "It sounded like a man who just saw the floor tilt under his feet." Reyes clapped her shoulder, careful of the wires. "You bought us the meeting," he said. "Now we have to buy the peace." Amina looked at the spoon, the vial, the biscuit crumbs, and almost laughed. In the kitchen of her memory, her grandmother wiped a child's tears with the corner of an apron and said, "Breathe through it, little flame. There's sweetness after the heat." On Rim 4, under a sky still streaked with red, Amina breathed. The burn was still there. So was the path forward. The Needle Spire loomed like a dagger thrust into Rim 4's basalt crust, its obsidian walls glowing faintly from geothermal veins beneath. Steam hissed from vents, wreathing the spire in ghostly halos. Under a fragile truce, Dr. Amina Kadir walked through the gate flanked by 2 militia escorts, and a pair of HFY delegates wearing her gel masks. Their translucent chitin gleamed faintly in the filtered light. The silence was unnerving. No Dominion soldiers lined the halls. No guards marched with weapons ready. The great strategos had ordered them absent, perhaps to show honor, or perhaps because belief in Red Ghost had cracked and discipline wavered. A chamber opened ahead, black glass walls, circular table, steam venting from a central grate. At its head stood Strategos Vakes. His carapace armor shimmered with faint red reflections, mandibles flexing as he studied her. "You arrive unarmed," he said, voice resonant as a drum. "You asked for honesty," Amina replied, her throat still scarred from the burn of ghost thorn. "I brought it." She placed a case on the table and opened it. Inside, charts, samples of neutralizing gel, masks, and a data tablet projecting molecular models of the vanillide agonist. Vakes's aides shifted uneasily, their eyes darting to the holograms. One whispered, "It is true." Another muttered, "Our sermons promised," then silenced himself when the strategos raised a claw. Vakes's gaze stayed fixed on Amina. "You humiliated me before my soldiers. You shattered the fear that held this front together. Do you take pride in making me weak?" Amina met his stare. "No. I take pride in saving lives, yours included. Fear collapses. Truth holds. If you cling to fear, you lose everything. If you accept truth, you keep dignity." For a long breath, the chamber hissed with steam. Then Vake stepped closer, mandibles clicking softly, a sound like grief disguised as command. "My sister," he said, voice lower, strained, "died during a containment breach. Red Ghost seeped from a broken tank. She convulsed, begged for air, then lay still. I built doctrine on her death. I made it holy so her suffering would not be wasted." The HFY envoy stirred. "You turned a tragedy into a weapon." Vake snapped his gaze at the envoy, anger flaring then dimming. I turned it into faith. Without it, we were fractured. Amina spoke gently but firmly. Faith that kills your allies is no faith at all. Ghost Thorn took your sister. It nearly took this world. But it doesn't have to be death anymore. It can be science, something that teaches instead of terrifies. She slid the gel forward across the table. This neutralizes exposure in HFY physiology. With research, we can refine it. Ghost Thorn could become a medicine, a tool, a food additive even. Your people worship it as power. Let them worship it as life instead. Vex's claws tapped the black glass surface, the sound echoing like stones falling. And if I refuse? Reyes, standing at Amina's side, answered flatly. Then your governors will depose you before your soldiers obey you again. The galaxy saw her eat your deterrent. They saw you lose control. The Strategos closed his eyes. The steam around him seemed heavier, a man drowning in his own past. When he opened them, there was no fire, only resignation. You will not call it surrender, he said. No, Amina agreed. Call it transformation. End the Red Ghost deployments. Sign a treaty. Share research. Let this be remembered as the day your Dominion turned death into something greater. The aides whispered urgently, arguments tumbling. Vex silenced them with a raised claw. Prepare the document, he said. 2 days later, in the broadcast hall of Needle Spire, the treaty was read to the galaxy. Cameras hovered as Amina, Vex, Reyes, and the HFY envoys sat at a shared table. Vex's voice carried through every relay. The Dominion retires Red Ghost from war. Ghost Thorn will no longer be harvested for death. We will cooperate in research to preserve life. The Strategos commands it. He spoke the words with the cadence of ritual, as though to shield himself from the loss. Yet the aides behind him bowed their heads. Some cried. The faith had not died, it had been rewritten. Amina spoke next, her voice clear despite the healing burns. The galaxy saw fear collapse. Now let it see what grows in its place. Where heat once killed, it will now heal. Where myth once ruled, science will serve. Together we end Red Ghost. The transmission reached every Dominion outpost, every neutral station, every militia channel. A weapon of terror was gone in an instant, not by fire, not by fleets, but by demonstration and courage. That night, the first communal meal was held inside Needle Spire. The kitchens had been cleared of military rations and stocked with ingredients grown in human and HFY habitats. Amina stood over a pot, stirring a curry deliberately mild. The air filled with scents alien to the Dominion, onions caramelizing, cardamom rising, the warmth of turmeric. She ladled portions into ceramic bowls and placed them before Corth officers who had only ever known Ghost Thorn as weapon, never as flavor. One officer dipped his mandibles into the broth, recoiled slightly, then tried again. His eyes flicked open wide, surprise replacing suspicion. It is heat, he said slowly. But not harm. Exactly, Amina replied. It teaches respect. Not fear. Laughter rippled around the table. The HFY envoy raised a bowl with shaking claws and drank. Even Vex, rigid and silent at first, dipped his mandibles. His eyes closed. For the first time in years, no one in that hall was an enemy. Later, Amina stood alone on a balcony overlooking Rim's frozen ridges. The sky was clear, no crimson fog rolling across the snow, only stars scattered like salt over black stone. Diaz joined her, arms folded. Never thought I'd see the day a spoon ended a war. Not a spoon, she said. A choice. Someone had to eat what everyone feared. That was all. Diaz smirked. Guess you'll be in the history books. She shrugged, watching the stars. History is just kitchens remembered by strangers. If the galaxy breathes easier tomorrow, that's enough. The wind carried the faintest scent of ghost thorn from the fields beyond, not as terror, not as omen, just as another plant waiting to be understood. And for the first time since the war began, Amina let herself believe in peace.